If we think of the world of work historically, it's always been defined by its physicality. The physical workplace is offices, shops, factories, call centres, and the digital workplace, sort of put simply, is the digital equivalent or the digital space where work happens. So on a kind of technology level, it's intranets, email, microblogging, teleconferencing, HR systems, iPads, mobile, it's all of the stuff. This physical environment is being slightly changed, even transformed, because quite a lot of people here are already actively working and sort of taking this physical environment into a digital workplace. So the digital is that layer of work. Well, I wrote it for three reasons, I guess. One is that I started to realise, having been working for almost 30 years now, that most of my work had been shaped by my ability to influence the way that I'd worked. So I'd got a kind of personal story of technology and work, which had enabled me to work in a way where I had an awful lot of autonomy and influence over work. The other reason was that the company I run has about 60 people and we have no offices. We work entirely in a digital workplace. We do meet, but I thought that story was interesting. But I suppose the kind of key thing is that I think there's a new landscape, a new geography of work that is starting to emerge and that I think we're at the early stages of. And I don't think anybody had really kind of started to look at the implications of this in terms of leadership, teams, the effect on culture inside organisations. And I felt that it was going to be an interesting story to write. So one of the positives, I would say, is that there's very little kind of wasted time, sort of travelling, commuting. The ability to kind of create a level playing field for a team that's based globally now is very important. So for instance, the ability to jump onto Yammer as one of the sponsors, which we've used since the company started, instant messaging, the ability to kind of connect people and make them understand. There was a meeting last week in San Francisco for all the people who weren't physically there. It felt like they were. It's created a kind of digital level playing field for everybody inside the organisation. It's very quick to onboard new people into the organisation. They log on to our intranet, they see what's happening, connect with other people, immediately get in the discussion. There's none of the kind of physical impediments that would involve come into the head office, meet people, some of the people are there, some of the people aren't. One of the kind of downsides that I've personally found is that sometimes it can be a bit lonely. You know, you're sort of working from home or you're working in some sort of, some cafe somewhere, and you kind of miss your colleagues. So what we do once a month in London and New York is we have a kind of meet-up where everybody comes to a conference venue and we basically work together. Everybody really looks forward to that. If you're in situations where there's a bit of difficulty going on between two people and one of them's based in the Caribbean and somebody else is based in France, it's hard to get them together for a coffee. Face-to-face communication is regarded as the kind of highest form of communication. I think one of the things that we might need to question is whether that's going to continue to be the case. The digital workplace is not in some battle against the physical workplace. It's not designed to kind of knock it off its perch and stop people meeting. Organisations can meet as much as they want to. The physical world is going to have to work harder and harder to justify why you should come to work, why you should be there. I think what's interesting is that the physical world that we work in, which I think is the critical thing for people involved in communications, has really kind of shown us what it's got. It can't get any cleverer. We've got the open plan, flexible cafe-style offices. But what's happening is that the digital is by the day getting richer, deeper and more meaningful. So for instance, if you can post a question, as somebody at Sodexo did a few days ago, and get 80 answers immediately from people across the world. If you're in the office, you ask a couple of colleagues, turns out they don't actually know any of the answers. The problem I've got with our addiction to physical work and physical connection is that I don't see what else it's got to offer beyond what it's already shown us, which is a little bit makes a difference, but a hell of a lot equals a morning commute. Understanding, navigating the geography of the digital workplace is an absolutely mandatory quality for any leader of any level. They should be seeing this as a real boon, an asset for them. So somebody like Ben Vervaven, who was at BT, now at Alcatel-Lucent, for an hour a month he went online, live chatting to people inside the organisation. I think for any leader it's an ability to immediately connect with everybody inside the organisation. Obviously there are issues around digital separation and the digital divide that can exist in an organisation, but you can then leapfrog that by connecting to people through home devices, mobile devices and so on. But I really would question whether a leader who's not looking at navigating this world has really leading the organisation. One of the things that's very kind of mobilising for leaders is fear around not being appealing to new hires and new demographics. I was at a conference hosted by Fujitsu, and it was amazing, the companies there all on the future of work. They're interested to know what 15-year-olds in China are expecting for their organisations. And what they're expecting is something very, very different to the kind of digital disappointment they're getting today. One of the things that I say in the book is that managers' job quite often has been, and to some extent still is insisting that people come to the office and that they watch them work. The question is, when some of those statistics around people being able to flex when and how they work focuses work around outputs rather than inputs. And so really the role of managers as kind of watchers and observers and monitorers, controllers of work, starts to dilute. In a way, what we're talking about is what's the future of work here. Because if we don't understand what the future of work is, we can't understand how to communicate and engage people. But I really think that organisations are going to be functioning, for better or for worse, with fewer and fewer people. The current number of employees at Google is 30,000. Look at the value per employee of that organisation. You've then got organisations like Odesk, who are one of the case studies in the book, which essentially brings together contractors with work. So if you've got an organisation looking for somebody who's a Linux developer who speaks Flemish, based in Malaysia, they will go out to a global marketplace and contract the work. You see a situation where the companies employ fewer and fewer actual people, but essentially contract with larger numbers of people, enabled through technology. So my feeling is that the role of the manager is about managing delivery, results. What will persist over time? You know, what will we still need in 1,000 years' time? And one of the things that I think we will still do is work. And I think that is because I think work is essential to kind of human beings. It's kind of it's part of what gives us value in life. So I think that kind of description of the leisure society where everybody just sort of sat around and did nothing, it's never going to happen because we don't want it. And the other thing is that I think human beings always want to feel safe and secure. In the digital workplace, we need to feel safe and secure as individuals and as organisations. So you've got companies like Fujitsu, Logica, looking at the whole nature of identity and security in a digital environment. So when you're navigating through the kind of landscape of work and technology that you've created, the organisation needs to know that you're secure and that you need to feel secure. Security has to be absolutely paramount, but I think quite often it's used by legal, compliance, IT as a bit of a cop-out. You know, well, we can't do that because it's not secure. Well, make it secure. That's your job. When people log on, the 15-year-olds of today, when they log on to your system at 21 through their own IT. They just want to know that they can do it, and they'll expect it to be secure.
Yeah.
One of the things I've also talked about is situations where the whole thing's being driven by real estate and property. It's like we're cutting down, you know, only 30% of the desks are being used. Let's get rid of 60% of the space, and people are kind of thrown out of their home effectively where they're used to. So lack of kind of cultural guidance through it. So I think there's a really important role in providing the right support, education, hand-holding, and telling people at the senior level not to panic.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this immediately today, but you do have to kind of treat it as an important issue. Well, all the statistics are that people who work from home are around about 30% more productive than people who come into offices. So if you look at the Telework Research Network, studies in workplace trends, everything underlies that. You can do it two ways. One is you can take the odesk way, which is you take screen grabs from people's computers periodically while they're working to check they're actually working. I don't like that. It doesn't even smack of Big Brother. It's completely Big Brother. Having said that, they're running around about 100,000 freelancers globally, so you know it's one way of managing it. I think you judge people based on results. I mean, my own experience is that we have a very clear set of deliverables across the company that I run, and we expect people to produce reports on time. We expect them to be at a certain level of quality. We expect them to join meetings on time. We expect people to connect in through Yammer. Frankly, I don't personally care where people work, how they work, when they work. I've got no idea what people are doing today, but a very, very clear idea about whether some mapping of the digital workplace at AT&T is going to be delivered and works at good quality. So I think you can't manage people by sort of observing what they do. You have to look at what they're producing. And I think that is quite a challenge and quite scary, and I understand that for a lot of people. The technology advances are going to be automating more and more things. I think we're probably going to see more robots operating in factories in increasing numbers. I think there's a kind of issue for organisations as they as we start to work out where the jobs are going to come from, because there's this sort of relentless process of technology replacing people. But I think this is something that's going to affect every organisation. And I also think it's going to affect retail. I was wondering, and looking at, obviously we've all been into Apple stores, they actually function, when you look at the turnover per store from the number of people there, it's astronomical. And I think all of those environments are affected by the digital as well.